Part 1. The Fall Before the Fire Welcome. To Dark Side of Love. In today's story, we peel back the quiet lies that live in the space between love and betrayal. This is not just another tale of infidelity. This is the dissection of a man's collapse and the chilling truth she never dared to say out loud. Miami. A man arrives home to silence Ethan Caldwell, stepped through the front door of his Miami home just past 7:45 p.m. The heat of the day still clinging to the night air, like residue from a storm. He loosened his navy silk tie with one hand, the other massaging the tension pulsing behind his temples, a ritual he'd grown used to after years in the prosecutor's office. His body carried the weight of men judged, verdicts delivered, and lives altered by justice. But tonight, something felt wrong. Too quiet. No bassline thumping from Nathan's room. No giggles from Olivia's latest TikTok. No scent of dinner wafting from the kitchen. Just stillness. The kind that made you pause. At the door, and question if the home you built was still yours, and then he saw her, Lauren, his wife of 18 years, sitting on the edge of the living room couch like a statue molded by tension, her back straight, hands clasped, tight knuckles bone white. Her eyes, normally as expressive as the ocean after rain, now flat, hard, murky. Ethan, she said, just his name, but something about the way she said it. Deliberately, softly, like each syllable was sharp enough to cut glass. He dropped his briefcase near the entryway. "What's going on?" he asked, forcing a smile he didn't feel. Looked like someone died. He stepped forward, one foot into a war zone he hadn't known he was walking into. Lauren raised her gaze, and then she said the 4 words that detonated their entire world. "I want a divorce." When reality shatters for a moment, Ethan didn't breathe, didn't move, didn't even feel real. The air had been knocked from his lungs like a gut punch. That word divorce echoed in his mind like a courtroom gavel slamming against oak. He blinked, staring at the woman who had shared his bed, his name, his children, and a lifetime of memories, and suddenly she felt foreign, alien. "You what?" "Been thinking about it for a while," Lauren said, voice calm. "It's a calm. I need space. I need to find myself again." Find herself. The word struck like a slap. As if their 18 years together had been a detoursome, disposable phase in her grand journey toward enlightenment. Ethan's voice dropped, guttural and hoarse. "Lauren, please. Whatever this is, whatever you're feeling, we can work through it. Just talk to me." She looked away, pain flickering in her jawline, and said softly, "It's not something you can fix." That's when he saw it, the tremor in her hands, the subtle way she clutched her phone, and how she couldn't meet his eyes. His breath hitched. "There's someone else," said silence, and that silence screamed louder than any confession ever could. The match's lit. Ethan stumbled back a step. His knees threatened to buckle. A part of him, a small, flickering ember, had hoped it was just midlife confusion, depression, a mistake. But this was betrayal, ancient and primal, the kind that strips a man to his bones. "How long?" She didn't answer right away, so he repeated it louder. "How long?" Lauren inhaled like the breath hurt her lungs. "A few months." While he was poring over murder trials and putting monsters behind bars, the real monster had been right here spooning, another man in his bed, his face twisted into something unfamiliar, something darker. "You never meant to hurt me?" He scoffed bitterly. "Is that supposed to make it better?" Lauren wrapped her arms around herself, as if trying to protect something still worth keeping. "It wasn't just physical," she whispered. "That made it worse because it meant feelings. It meant she chose someone else with her soul before her. Body ever betrayed him. No more words, only consequences." He stared at her like she was a stranger, because in truth she was. "You want a divorce?" he said, voice cold. "Fine, but you're not getting a damn thing." Her eyes widened. "Ethan, no." He cut her off like a blade. "You made your choice. Now live with it." And just like that, he turned and walked out, leaving her behind with nothing but the sound of her own regret. The legal firestorm, the divorce, moved quickly. Ethan, fueled by a sense of betrayal so deep it scorched his very blood, hired a divorce attorney with teeth sharp enough to tear through any facade Lauren might wear. When a friend at the courthouse, an IT specialist, handed him a folder full of digital evidence, it was the final nail in her legal coffin. Hundreds of messages, late-night texts, pictures, plans made in secrecy while he worked overtime to build a life for her and the kids. Lauren didn't fight for alimony. Couldn't. Not with proof of her adultery spread across printed pages, like blood on snow. Her new flame, Ryan, wasn't the man she thought he was. Not stable, not wealthy, not ready for the weight of someone else's destroyed family. The glamorous fantasy she chased crumbled before her eyes, and Ethan, he walked away with everything, except her. But he didn't want her anymore. Reinvention through fire pain has a way of making men, or breaking them. Ethan chose the former. He started rising at dawn. Long before the Miami sun began to stretch over the skyline, hitting a downtown boxing gym like it owed him answers. Every punch was a question thrown at the universe. Why didn't I see it? Why wasn't I enough? Why did she betray me? He shaved his head, burned his suits, replaced them with fitted shirts and boots that hit the ground like a warning. The man in the mirror became someone new, someone harder, sharper, better. The one regret that returned one night, sweat pouring from his brow after a brutal workout. He stepped out into the alley behind the gym, and there she was. Lauren, smaller, thinner, lonely. Her voice trembled when she saw him. Ethan, he didn't flinch, didn't blink, didn't feel. I didn't expect to see you. I heard about your trial, she continued nervously. You're doing amazing. Yes, I am. He said it with the finality of a courtroom sentence. She opened her mouth to say more. He cut her off. You don't have to say anything, Lauren. We're done. And he walked away, never looking back. Not once. Part 2. Shadows of Judgment. Last we left Ethan Caldwell. He had walked through the fire of betrayal, burned, but not broken. Marriage lost, a new man forged. But now, as the flames of his past begin to fade, a colder shadow approaches. Because what do? When justice starts to feel like revenge? And when truth becomes too complicated to tell? Back in the furnace, the morning sun hung over the Miami skyline like a judgment waiting to be delivered. Ethan stepped into the prosecutor's office. The familiar scent of burnt coffee and recycled paper washing over him like an old worn-out uniform. It was home, but also a cage. The divorce was over. His life, technically fixed. But something in him remained, unsettled. He wasn't a broken man anymore. But he wasn't healed either, not even close. That's when Cheryl, his longtime legal assistant, poked her head into his office. The boss wants you. Ethan raised an eyebrow. Now what? It's the Langley case. And it's big. State versus Marcus Langley. Dallas Monroe didn't waste time. He handed Ethan a thick folder stamped in bold. Read, First-degree murder, Marcus Langley. Ethan flipped it open. A 74-year-old retired Army captain, accused of murdering his wife with a lethal dose of morphine. Confession. Already in physical evidence. Solid open, dash and dash shut. But Ethan's instincts screamed otherwise. Dallas leaned back in his chair, his tone heavy. I need you on this. Bingham was a disaster. This one we can't mess up. Ethan's jaw clenched at the mention of Charles Bingham, the man who euthanized his terminally ill wife and was torn apart by Ethan in court. Before taking his own life 2 weeks later, another husband, another sick wife, another line blurred. Between mercy and murder, he exhaled slowly. I'll take it. Soldier's confession that afternoon, Ethan sat across from Marcus Langley in a cold, windowless interrogation room. The old man still carried the bearing of a military officer, back straight, his hands folded, eyes sharp beneath a weathered brow. His demeanor wasn't one of guilt. It was one of ... readiness, like a man who had already made peace with hell. I don't need a lawyer, Marcus said, before Ethan could speak. I did it. Ethan studied him, arms crossed. You don't seem like the kind of man who gives up easily. Marcus didn't blink. When you love someone, really love them, sometimes letting go is the last thing you can do for them. Ethan leaned back. Here we go again. The cracks in the story. He opened the folder. Julia Langley, pancreatic cancer. Morphine dose lethal. You were the only one in the room. Marcus nodded. I said she asked for it. Do you expect me to believe that? No, Marcus said. I expect you to do your job. But Ethan wasn't convinced. Something about the confession felt. It's clean, so he pushed. What about Vivian Carter? The moment he said the name, Marcus flinched. Barely, but Ethan saw it. She lived next door. Widowed last year. Used to be your wife's friend. Then something changed. Marcus didn't speak. But Ethan did. You were planning a future. With her, a future that didn't include Julia. So you did what? Cleared the board? Marcus's hands tightened into fists on the table. You think you know everything, don't you? Ethan didn't flinch. I know that people leave in when they believe they're telling the truth. The dam breaks. Marcus leaned forward. Voice low, gravelly. You want the truth? I loved her. Julia. I loved Vivian too. Yes, and I wanted out. Of the sickness. Of the house filled with beeping machines and nurses that smelled like bleach. I wanted to remember her the way she was. He swallowed. But that night, Julia looked at me. For the first time in months, she knew me. She said she was tired. She said it hurt. She said, please, Marcus, ... let me go. Ethan stared at the old man. You think that makes it right? No, Marcus said. But it makes it real. The trial that tore him apart. The trial moved swiftly. Media swarmed outside the courtroom. Headlines screamed veteran turns killer and mercy or murder. Ethan laid out the facts. Methodical. Surgical. The confession. The motive. Buried in a complicated triangle of grief. A fading love and a new beginning waiting across the street. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. The verdict.
LT.
Marcus. Langley didn't react. No plea. No protest, just a silent nod, like a soldier accepting a failed mission. The final judgment that night. Ethan stayed late in his office. The building empty. The city alive outside like nothing had changed, but something had inside him. For the first time in years, a guilty verdict didn't feel like victory. It felt hollow. And then his phone rang. Cheryl, quiet voice. Distant. Marcus. Langley's dead. Overdose. They think he saved pills from his wife's stash. Ethan didn't speak, didn't move. He just sat there in the dark, staring at the wall as Marcus' final words echoed in his mind. When you love someone, you do what's right for them, even if it means letting go. Ethan wasn't sure if he'd sent a criminal to justice, or a broken man to die, and that terrified him. Escape in luxury, or so it seems. Say a week later, Ethan stood on the boarding deck of the Serenity, a luxury cruise ship gleaming under the Miami sun. It's the kind of place where people danced, drank, and pretended their lives were perfect. Ethan didn't want to be there, didn't want a vacation, didn't want peace. He wanted the courtroom, the work, the noise. But Monroe had made it clear. Get on the ship or don't bother coming back. So here he was, duffel bag slung over his shoulder, heart full of things he hadn't unpacked in years. The room was sleek, polished, private balcony, fully stocked mini dash bar. First thing he did, pour a drink, not to relax, to forget, but it didn't. Work, nothing ever did. Unexpected company, Jessica Stevensla. Knock was sharp. He opened the door to find Jessica Stevens brilliant, blunt, and far too observant. Really? She said, stepping inside. A cruise? Boss's orders, Ethan replied, sipping from his glass. She rifled through his bag. No files? Nothing but regret, he muttered. She paused, looked at him differently. You've changed, she said, but not in a good way. He didn't reply, because she was right. He had changed, but maybe change was what he needed. A glimpse of mystery. Olin Dearden, that evening, Ethan wandered the deck, the sea stretching endlessly on all sides, and that's when he saw her. She stood like a painting framed by moonlight, dressed in the navy and gold uniform of senior staff, piercing blue eyes, dark hair pulled into a tight bun, composed but intense. She watched him, not like a woman watches a man, but like a profiler studies a suspect. "Mr. Caldwell," she said, accent lightly French. "That's me," he replied. "Olin Dearden, assistant. Cruise director." They shook hands. Her grip was cool, precise. "May I ask you something?" Do you arched a brow? "Do you always do what you're told, Evan, when you don't want to be here?" He chuckled. "My boss is very persuasive." She nodded. "You don't strike me as a man who does things he doesn't want to." He narrowed his eyes. She smiled and walked away. But her words stayed with him. "You don't seem like a man who does things against his will." A midnight encounter. Later that night, he returned to the upper deck. The sea was quiet, and so was she. Olin stood at the edge, her silhouette etched against the stars. "You always find me when I need to be." "Alone," he said. "Maybe you're the one finding me," she replied. They talked. Not about cases, not about pain, but about why people like them do what they do. "You live in a world of laws," she said, "but sometimes justice has nothing to do with truth." That stopped him, because deep down, he knew she was right. Part 3. The truth. She never said out loud. Ove walked beside a man betrayed, watched justice twist into something colder, and met a woman whose presence was too exact to be coincidence. Now, aboard a ship drifting between two continents, Ethan Caldwell will face the most dangerous adversary of all, the truth. The calm before the collapse 3 nights into the cruise, Ethan stood alone at the railing of the Serenities. Upper deck, the moonlight casting silver on the ink-black sea. The silence was deep, the kind only the ocean could create. He welcomed it, his drink dash untouched, his thoughts anything but. Somewhere in the laughter below deck, in the gentle hum of jazz near the bar, people were pretending they hadn't been broken once. But Ethan no longer pretended. He leaned forward, and then he felt it again, that sensation being watched. "You're becoming predictable," he said without turning. Olin Dearden stepped beside him, her presence calm yet quietly powerful. "You're difficult to ignore," she replied. The layers beneath her smile that night. They walked the ship in silence. She asked questions, not surface level, but surgical, about the Langley trial, about Charles Bingham, about his own marriage, about guilt. And for the first time in a long time, Ethan answered, not with facts, but with pain. He told her how it felt to hold the truth in your hands, and still not be sure if you did the right thing. She listened, really listened. When he finally stopped speaking, they were standing outside his cabin door. She reached up and touched the side of his face, soft, brief, and electric. "I think," she said softly, "you've forgotten how to be human." Then she left, and Ethan stood there, breath caught in his throat, unable to move. A knock. A turn. A dead man in the water. Morning came with a knock. This time, not from Jessica or Olin, but from the ship's head of security. "Double quotes, Mr. Caldwell, we need your discretion." An hour later, Ethan stood in the ship's lower medical ward, staring at the lifeless body of a man pulled from the water. Ryan Monroe, Lauren's affair partner. Dead. Cold. A blow to the back of the skull. No water in the lungs. He hadn't drowned. He was murdered. The ship was locked down quietly. The story spun for the passengers. Medical emergency. Nothing to worry about. But Ethan knew better, because Lauren Caldwell had also boarded this cruise. He just hadn't known she was here until now. Confronting the ghost of his marriage, he found her on deck 7, wrapped in a designer shawl, sunglasses covering her eyes. "Drink in hand. Did you follow me?" he asked. She turned slowly, eyes hollow. "No, Ryan did. Didn't even know he was here until yesterday. We argued. Define argued." She hesitated. "He blamed me. Said I ruined his life. That. I used him. Maybe I did." Her voice cracked not with guilt, but with grief. He said he'd tell you everything. That he'd make you see me the way he did. Ethan's face was granite. Did you kill him? No, she said. But I thought about it. A pattern of chaos back in his cabin. Ethan laid out everything he knew. Ryan wasn't just broke, he was desperate. After losing his job, his reputation, and most of his money in a failed crypto scam, he had started blackmailing Lauren. He had photos, messages, evidenced enough to destroy her completely. And she wasn't the only one, because Ryan had also been involved with another woman aboard the ship, a crew member, and her name was Olin Dearden. Unmasking Olin Dearden. Night, Ethan met Olin on the deserted crew deck. His tone was sharper than steel. How long did you know Ryan Monroe? Olin blinked, then smiled. You really don't miss a detail, do you? Answer the question. I knew him, she said, before your wife did. Years ago, I left him when I learned who he really was. And yet, you're here. On this ship with me. Right after he ends up dead. She stepped closer. I didn't kill him, Ethan. But I knew what he was. And I knew it would catch up to him. He studied her face. So what are you? A spy? A witness? Or just another liar wearing a prettier mask? Alan's expression changed. It hardened. I'm someone who knows what people look like when they've lost everything. You think I sought you out for Monroe? No. I watched you because you look like a man who had stopped believing in the law, in people, in himself. Pause. And I wanted to see if that man could still be saved. A second body 2 days later. Another passenger was found dead. Overdose. An old woman named Vivian Carter. Yes, that Vivian. Marcus Langley's supposed other woman. But what the crew's manifest revealed was something that chilled Ethan's spine. Vivian and Marcus had booked this cruise together. Months ago, before Julia Langley died, before Marcus stood trial, before he confessed. They had planned to run, disappear, be free. But somewhere along the line, Marcus chose to stay and take the fall. Why? Asterisk, Ethan no longer knew. But he knew this. Marcus had never wanted justice. He had wanted redemption. And he thought giving up his freedom would buy back his soul. And now, Vivian was dead too. Whether it was guilt or foul play, Ethan would never know. A choice in the dark. Ethan sat alone on the observation deck, the stars above sharp and cruel. Lauren was gone. Left at the last port, Ryan was dead. Vivian dead. Alen. She hadn't been seen in hours. And Ethan was no longer sure if he was still the man he used to be. A prosecutor, a husband, a hero, or just a man. A broken one. Then she appeared, Dashlin. No. Uniform, no badge. Just her. I'm leaving the ship tonight, she said. They're flying me out early. The company thinks I'm a liability. Ethan stood. So that's it? No, she said. That's your decision. If you want me gone, I'll go. He stepped closer, paused, then whispered, I don't know what I want anymore. She nodded, but she didn't leave. She just stood there, waiting, the final flame. As the ship pulled into its final port, Ethan Caldwell stood on the deck, in his face, sun rising on the horizon. Behind him, a failed marriage, 2 deaths, a career made of gray morality, and a woman who saw through him, in front of him. Uncertainty. But maybe, for once, that wasn't a bad thing. Because when everything burns down, when the lies fall away and the ashes settle, what's left isn't weakness, it's the Stoic Flame. When a man is betrayed, he has 2 choices. Become the victim of that betrayal, or become the man who rises from it. Ethan Caldwell didn't just rise. He burned, and from the ashes something colder, something wiser, was born. Some truths are never spoken out loud, but in silence, they scream. The loudest,